for those who are here and not necessarily here for the reading, this is the bones of the terrible wife. So how the format is going to work, first off, I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jay Bradley. I run There Will Be Words, and I'll be reading along with Terry Ann Thaxton, who I will give a fantastic and formal introduction this evening before we get started. What's that? Got it. Okay. Just tell me what to do. So, yeah, you are a terrible wife. Thanks. But I'm a terrible husband. So the bones of the terrible wife, how the format works is I have a collection called The Bones of Us, which is about my divorce, and Terry has a collection called The Terrible Wife, which is about multiple divorces? Yeah. Multiple divorces. So how this is going to work, the format is that Terry is going to read a poem from her collection. I'm going to respond with a poem from my collection, and we're going to go back and forth for about 10 poems apiece. So this is going to be very interesting, the dialogue that we are going to create here between a terrible husband and a terrible wife. Yeah, I like that. People are uncomfortably laughing right now. Just a couple of ground rules before we get started. Your cell phones, please place them on silencio or vibrate. If you're going to put it on vibrate, keep it off the table unless you got an emergency call that's coming in. Emergencies happen. I'm going to put my phone on vibrate too. Okay, so now that we got our phones on vibrate, should I try to think of any other house rules here? Just make sure that, buy stuff from Stardust. Stardust is very kind enough to have us do this reading here. Let's give Stardust a round of applause even before we get started. Stardust has been a big supporter of literature as early as I can remember, from all the way back from like 2003, I want to say. So it's tremendous that Stardust is letting us do this one-of-a-kind reading here. So make sure that buy drinks, buy food, tip generously. So that way, more really cool literary events like this can continue to happen because people come and not only listen but also buy stuff from Stardust, and that's important. And I think that is about it. So I am going to introduce Terry Ann Thaxton, who will be reading with me. She's going to start off with the first poem. Terry Ann Thaxton, her latest collection is The Terrible Wife. Ladies and gentlemen, Terry Ann Thaxton.
Thank you, Jesse. Ooh, okay, is the sound right? You can hear me well. I thought I'd start with an uplifting poem, contrary to my normal content. This is a poem written posthumously. It's called And After. I will construct my final resting place like a solitary wasp out of sand and ash. I will speak of my regrets, my wild, early, and lousy demonstration of motherhood. I will, no doubt, hold on to my inability to put things back where I found them, my inability to speak in public, and my yelling at the neighbor whose dog had barked all weekend. I will never let go of getting down on my knees in a gesture of sarcasm to beg the neighbor for her royalties' forgiveness. I will hold on to my forgetfulness, my inability to close the doors to the laundry room, the week or more it took me to complete a single load of laundry. I will remember my mother, an argument against becoming a wife. I will recall the years she reminded me of my hair, how it falls into my eyes the way it does, and how she said I would never become a wife a man would keep.
collection. When I hear jewelry commercials on the radio say it's engagement season, I imagine restaurants scattered across meadows where young men grind themselves on bended knee. I want to wield doubt like a hatchet, scalp the blustering grooms who rehearse in front of bathroom mirrors, gut their smiles with, "You will not find the future in the train of her wedding dress."
The bench outside my life. All these men were there, the bench filled with regrets, the morning already turning into crow's wings. I was a book resting on dirt. Perhaps I invented the men on the bench to amuse me. Long ago, they were boys who lived through each night. Perhaps there were other girls next to me. Perhaps we tied bells to our feet. Perhaps we waited too long, our dark faces toward the sky.
Tourism. As my friend pulls me away from the woman with coloring book arms, all I think is, I love being in art galleries. I've explored rural museums, butterflies pinned on lower backs, the outsider exhibition mused by a halo of broken bottles, the peel of bandages, a lonely ribbon-cutting ceremony. I fold memories like a program, tear them into pieces, feed lovers the reproductions of spoiled canvases and hands. I'll tell them they need no totems for me to lose myself in their wings and halls.
The terrible wife. Something is dragging me into a room. It is screened in, and I am about to have an affair. I run my fingers through the other man's hair while my husband circles the building, and I realize we're in a picnic shelter, like the one my family went to when I was a girl at the state park, where a friend of mine jumped into the pond at dusk and was killed by the alligator. The room laughs, and I kneel in the corner, curl into a ball like a hog-nosed snake, and hope my husband will not see me. He keeps his face turned away from the screen, as if he is refusing to return phone calls of long-lost friends. I stay in the corner until the man I'm with is handed a note along with a flashlight. The message, "Shine the flashlight in the corner so you can see who's there." And it's me, of course, still huddled there, as if I am mud tracked in on the back porch. But it's more like I'm standing naked in a field of pond apple. I go back to rubbing the man's temples, and we both realize there are school projects to be completed by morning, and he helps my brother while I help my son. And then I am in my car, but I can't quite catch the bullfrog that jumped in beside me, so I go back inside. I want to stay here. I know the note and flashlight were from my husband, who now obviously knows about the affair, and I think I should wake up, end this thing right now. But right now, I want to be terrible.
Quadriplegic. I cannot memorize anything except your smiles. That one night where Yingling gave our hands courage and lobster claw costumes. You are not a Band-Aid. You are the laser cannon I want grafted on my shoulders to blow holes into mountains. Your fingertips the contact. The battery pack of your breath giving me the energy to destroy something majestic, because what is truly beautiful stands behind me. I get why you're afraid to like me. I'm built like a sidekick and woo like a landmine. I shouldn't be afraid to like you this much so soon, but I'm really good at falling and forgetting to pick myself up. Your signals are scrambled. I wish sometimes they would just be mixed. I know I'm not worth waiting for. I never expected you to open your arms like a finish line once I crossed the distance between the past and the future. I'm no hero. I have hands like sieves. I cannot fix or hold onto anything.
Cerebrovascular accident. It's the end of the sky as I know it. The blue collapsed into blue bowls of green, leaves into dust on the outside of a window. It's an empty cup, a lizard carved out of stone near the end of the world. All week I wait for his words. Drive home 5 times each day to walk the dog, to watch the hanging pots hang in front of my eyes with decay. How many times have I walked to the cafeteria and returned with the wrong sandwich, the wrong cookie? His hand cannot hold the doctor's names, cannot answer back, even though green marks on the whiteboard give us the nurse of the day, the controller of the calendar, blocking the table. And the water I want to pour, here's a man who cannot speak as he once did. It is like listening to a butterfly drape the yard with its wings. It is like wind of an unnamed storm somewhere in the Atlantic, where all I know are numbers on a card I carry at all times and instructions I wish I did not understand.
Marooned. There's a quiet dignity drowning alone in the adult swim of mixed drinks. No bar tab requiring the sacrifice of a credit card. No jukeboxes playing for the deaf. No doors coughing you out like nicotine jerky after last call. Alone, you are Poseidon. You'll pick the Spanish galleon of last night from your throat without searching for snip strings slumping from your wrists, ankles, or jaw.
The night I married Jasper Jacks. Jasper Jacks is a character on the American soap opera General Hospital. We had to switch hotel rooms, but Jax already unbuttoned his shirt, revealed his soap opera body. Sure, his hair was a mess, but at the wedding I was in my gown, a few ruffles, and even though I'd bought it at Walmart, it stood out. Someone chanted African songs from down the unseen hallway, and a woman danced instead of a flower girl. The only part I did not like about the wedding was the poster presentation of my previous 4 marriages. I didn't want everyone to see how cute my first husband was, how stupid I'd been with husband number 2, how husband number 3 had grown fat. And where was husband number 4? Why didn't he get a poster? The poster for husband number 1 included a video, and someone at the wedding had seen him recently, told me he'd widened in his age. Good, I thought. Someone that cute should get fat. And then our hotel room was a public place, The wedding guests wanted to see our bed, which is when they applauded. It took a while to convince them that the reception was somewhere else, down a long road. My sister drove me and a few guests through the mountains. She kept swerving off the side. Someone next to me, not Jax, kept yelling at her to slow down, to stay on the road. "This works," she kept repeating, "this works." Last thing I remember was a big turn in the road. Jax back there in another car, wondering where his new bride was headed, and the road endless. All of my husbands far, far behind.
Georgia on my mind. There is a hotel that forgot the names we wrote between the cavities of coarse thread counts. A mirror warps somewhere when it thinks about the wilting butterfly of your palm. I pluck daisies, walk on the petals like a tightrope, pretend your arms are the audience waiting for the fall. There will never be a shade of red I can paint your cheeks with without the day laborer of my mouth.
After dinner, he tells me he wants to live alone 3 weeks out of 4. Maybe absence could sound like notes falling from clouds. I could become the opposite of a bench in motion. The ladders in my room are already trying to be something they are not. Without stamps, envelopes want to remain where they are. The only thing covering emptiness is paint. In the window, clothes hang like stones.
Are we the dining dead? The elderly couple sitting 3 booths away from us cuts through the piped-in music. "You gotta eat the chicken," he says. "I don't want to eat the chicken," she says. "You gotta eat the chicken, not the paper. Eat the chicken, not the paper," he says, waving the half-eaten chicken and bun in her face before putting it down on the wrapper and then sliding it toward her. She slowly picks up the chicken and bun and chews. You say, "I hope when we get that old, you'll make me eat the chicken."
Hope. I can't remember why I was afraid of his old friend trying to find her way back into his life, but it seemed longer than a minute that I lived with curtains shredded on the window. I could not think of how to turn the hands of his clock back toward me. I wanted him to stare at my breasts, to take my hands as tokens of unlocking the door he needed. I wanted him to forget her name. I have never been afraid of the woods at night. And although I would never cut my wrists, I want to remember the color of the kite we flew over the field of fear for those months, where now wasted hours have turned into hope.
The National Guard will see you now. When you walk into my apartment, you'll declare martial law. The office park of wine glasses and cereal bowls on the table in the living room remains 90% vacant. To encourage me to clean my place, my mother calls me a hoarder. How can I explain the necropolis in the sink, the vacuum as outsider art, as barricades keeping me away from arms that aren't yours?
my first rental. On the edge of Highway 41, I sat on the steps and imagined which cars might stop to rescue me, wondered if I could trade the jalousie windows for a guitar and become a rock star. I waited every day for his body to warn me of arrival. Every day I cooked for him. Every day I went outside and looked up into the trees. Often I dared myself to grab the cast iron pot. The days he did not come home, he was either fishing or at Bob's, getting high. The sink was never clean. His rifle announced his arrival. One day the house will no longer exist, and I will not be able to find the exact spot where I buried my escape plan. Instead, I'll drive to where his mother still lives, sit out in front in my car, daring myself to knock on the door and tell her what he did to me. Then I'll drive to my new house, where no one calls to ask how I managed to stay in that place. It was a tiny, rotting house where two people learned how to hate. Sometimes I think I hear the road just outside that little house, reminding me what happened in the years after I left. The bulldozers, and now, in its place, storage units where people leave possessions they do not wish to keep or give away.
Some riot. The day you say you are leaving, your father lumbers around our apartment, grabbing furniture like a throat. Your mother asks me to say nothing. It takes a weekend for you to move out of our place, 2 more days to turn in your key, 2 months to fill out the paperwork. We meet in parking lots. You flaunt how much you don't miss me by looking like a woman I never knew. Facebook makes for a cheap private detective. It tells me my wife has a ghost of a new girlfriend. I dump the body of my wife's profile into the river, tying cinder blocks of "fuck you" to its ankles. The ghost approaches me wearing my wife's lipstick as a scar. On the day we say I don't, I show up early, wait outside of the courtroom. I call you and your mother to see where you were. The deputy feeds us one by one into the courtroom. When the deputy asks us if we have questions, I raise my hand and ask, what would happen if you aren't there for the hearing? The deputy reassures me that since I was there, our marriage would end no matter what. I resist the urge to high-five him. When you and your mother finally come into the courtroom, you sit 1 row behind me, close to the door. I see the way one of the soon-to-be divorced men hits on you. Your mother gives the thumbs up.
The preacher's wife. He is kind. They have been married for 5 years, but she no longer wants to be saved. His smile keeps telling her he's comforting the dead, but really, he's watching Skirts for Hire in dark rooms, hung in all their glory, while she totes a child through rhymes. This wins her a riot, and the water shivers away from this life that she thought she had wanted. She lets her hair stand on end, then her dress stinks. She and the crows in the yard begin to scheme, but suddenly the preacher ends it all by whining. Rumor insists she have a knife in her hands. Instead, she finds a gift, warblers swerving in tribes, and when she opens their bedroom door, an old wound opens. The birds wait outside.
Closure. You never savored me like fine wine, she said. I can't enjoy something so watered down and passed around, I replied. 3 weeks later.
Toward something. I wanted to find the pattern of yesterday, dip into that old wish, but then a strange woman speaks, and it's as though I am still waiting on the side of a road, trying to catch a ride back to the beginning, when all I had was a chair out on the hills, when I stood with the trees as if I were a new day. Back then, back when I was not thinking about decay, when I craved the tang of each morning, back when I was certain I'd find life inside a house, or apples, or my voice spilling out on the sidewalk where children have erased my footsteps, because I want to go back, find a refuge, climb the ladder toward something, not this.
Cosmonaut. The house is a pulmonary system of pocket universes. We lose ourselves in the vacuum of auto-tune, drift toward the outer rims of conversations and plastic Dixie cups. Bottles of Banker's gin collapse like white dwarves in our throats. In the morning, we will smack our lips, ruin the cotton in our cheeks. Our heads are capsules with cracks in the seams.
The empty trail. The empty trail is an opened scarf that carries me into the oak shadows until the day is lost, and I am lingering in a bed of straw and leaves. At home, my house dress became a floating umbrella, a memory from the heavy cart of night. But here, summer brushes my face. I'd trade all of my wedding rings for weeds and dirt and swamp. I do not call on anyone's worn hands to hold me up. I have no one to follow into the air. Here, light opens upon vines. Hunger is one swoop, an osprey pounding water, and I keep walking down the long thread of river toward the grass of forgiveness.
No more Rouleau. I talk to the past in the wine store. Our vacant ring fingers don't burn like a bridge when waving hello. For a moment, I ask myself, is this like old times? Before remembering the whys behind our I don'ts. There are things about you I miss. The rattle of your laugh, wine-induced courage, our invention of climate-controlled cuddling. You became lead I rolled off my shoulders. I was a less than amazing husband, treating your body like the right side of an isosceles triangle. We always laughed when we told people we meant, well, I asked you to be on the left. I'm not sorry for the 6 years, the mistakes, the blackouts, how the valves of our bed made the neighbors remember our names. I'm sorry we weren't grown enough to sheathe the blame. Seeing you isn't like salt. These arms were not the shelter you needed. I understand now that I move like a patchwork of rooms. You don't live here anymore. So we can take like 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A if y'all have questions for us. We have books, by the way. We have lovely, lovely, lovely books, and each of us are using our book sales for something really fun or dastardly or both. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive. Sometimes they are. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard, come see us after the Q&A. I believe you have Square too, correct? Take credit cards. We accept credit, so your credit is good here. So we wanted to throw out there to see if y'all had any whatever questions that y'all had for Terry, myself, the both of us.
I'm curious if you coordinated the poems to respond to each other before you got on the stage, or if you flipped to respond to each other. How did you do that?
You want me to answer? You can. Yeah. That way.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, let me. I want to thank Jesse for putting this whole thing together. It's been wonderful reading with you, so thank you very much. I love your poems. No, we had no idea which we were going to do. It was his brilliant idea to have a reading together because he thought that our poems sort of complemented one another, and then he suggested that we read in dialogue, and we did not rehearse or even decide which poems we were reading before we got here. Did you decide?
No, I absolutely did
not.
not.
No, I did not. I did, but I threw that out, and I just responded to his poems as he was reading. So it was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun. Yeah. Thanks. Kim.
I just wanted to say I thought it was a perfect ending and a perfect beginning, and everything between was just really, like you said, natural.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When you guys are writing on a topic that's so, part of you, part of your past, is it more important to stick to form or structure or, rhythms? Like, is it important to adhere to those elements of craft?
At least for myself, when writing these particular pieces, I wasn't really concerned about what form. I don't ever think I want this poem to be in this very specific form. I'm someone who likes to let the work grow organically as I'm writing it. So normally for me, it's a core idea that unfolds as I start writing. So one of the pieces in here, for example, the very first poem, the core idea was melting my wedding band into a bullet. And also, when you're writing work like this, you have to avoid. It's very easy to fall into the trap of anger and melodrama. So you really have to be careful of when you're writing this kind of work that you're not falling into angry open mic territory or angry slam poetry territory, which I've been guilty of in the past. And again, I can only speak for myself. But at least for me, it's all about what the core idea is and letting that unfold as I start writing it, and also start revising the work as well to make sure that the core is still there, the soul of the poem is still there, but the meat around the soul isn't necessarily the way it was in the first or second or fifth draft. What would you like to add?
Yeah, I probably work more on. I see form and content as a thing to balance, and so probably form begins structure of the poem, where the lines end, all that happens in revision. I think, yeah. But I too start with images and words. I never know what a poem is going to be about when I start it, and I just happen to be obsessed with men.
What other questions? Yes, sir.
How do you decide when you've come to the end?
Now, when you say come to the end, you mean in terms of come to the end of the poem or a collection?
The end of the poem, whether it's unfolding.
I think it's just a matter of having that internal compass developed to where after so many revisions that it's there, that ending is there, at least for yourself. My collection, because it's a graphic poetry collection, so it's art and poetry. It actually went through some more revisions after the art started coming in, and my publisher went, yeah, I need you to cut a little more fat out of these poems. And sometimes you need an outside perspective. It took me almost 4 years to get this book published. Sometimes you need a clinical outside perspective to tell you that your poem isn't quite at its end yet. It needs to be pushed a little bit further. So while you have your own internal compass, sometimes you need someone to hit you in the back of the head and go, nope, not quite there yet. You need to go a little bit further. But of course, in a respectful and gentle way, unless you like being hit in the back of the head to do stuff, then hey, that's cool. Just want to add something?
No. That was a great answer.
Okay. All right. If you all have no more questions, we're not going to force you to ask questions. It's fine.
We could ask them.
Oh, we could. I don't know whether or not they would answer these questions. So I would like, first off,
Are either one of you married again?
What's that?
Are either one of you married again?
Yes, I'm okay.
I'm always married. I was married and divorced 3 times before I turned 25. Then I did take some time off. And I've been with husband number 4 for almost 20 years. So, okay. So that I thought since I have been married 4 times, it qualifies me to write a book called A Terrible Wife.
I'm actually getting married in October. Actually, right down the street over at East End Market in their event space. So, really excited about that. And my fiance is here, but I'm not going to point her out because she doesn't want to be embarrassed. But if you know who she is, then you know who she is. So, not pointing fingers or anything like that, but yeah. All right. I want to thank once again. This whole idea. I was looking for new ways to read from the collection, and I thought after hearing Terry read at the library poems from The Terrible Wife, it went, let's read these together and see what happens. And I'd like to give a big thank you to Terry for joining me in this poetic experiment. So please give her a big round of applause. Let's see here. I'm going to do a quick shameless plug before I close the show. And when I say shameless plug, I mean shameless plug in terms of there will be words. So the next there will be words, by the way. If you are into prose only shows, There Will Be Words is the place for you. Not that there's this poetry. This has been a really awesome and fun poetry thing. It absolutely has. Sometimes you just got to get a taste for prose. And our next show is August 12th at the Gallery at Avalon Island. Our readers at that show are Ashley and Quanta, Jared Sylvia, Maya Sloan, and Rose Tran. So 2 of them are new who've never read it before. 2 are There Will Be Words favorites. So that's we do that second Tuesday of every month. Come check that out. And also, there's all sorts of literary events in town. If you've never been to a literary event in town, the Orlando Weekly's been really good at actually promoting those. So Borough Press runs Functionally Literate every quarter. The Kerouac House is always doing stuff. UCF is always doing stuff. Rollins is Winter with the Writers. Just look around. If this is the first time that you've ever listened to poetry, that you've accidentally fell into this audience and you enjoyed it, that's awesome. That's great. And I hope that you check out more literary events like this, and feel free to talk to the both of us, because we know stuff, literary stuff here in town, and we can give recommendations. Before we go, I used to run a poetry slam here, and our tradition at the poetry slam at the end of it was that we gave love to Stardust by all of us saying, "We love you, Stardust," in unison. So in the count of 3, I'd like for us to go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Stardust, for having us. I'm Jay Bradley, and there were some bones and some terrible married people. Enjoy the rest of your evening.